Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're having a look at Rear Window. Now this is a board game from Funko Games, who did send it to me for review. This is based on the 1954 Alfred Hitchcock film, where effectively looking out of his window on a hot day, on hot days, and seeing what's going on. And well, it's a bit of a thriller. But without going into the plot of the original film too much, let's work out how this game works, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the game. In Rear Window, one player is going to take up the role of the director, while the others are going to be the watchers. Generally, the director is trying to help the watchers get all of the answers right, and by that I mean they are going to be playing cards, not always helpful cards, but they're going to be playing cards into locations of the 4 different rooms that you're looking into. The watchers are going to use these clues to deduce not only who is in them, but a bit of a trait about them as well. Are they a photographer? Do they love animals? Or are they a murderer? Well, that last bit is a little bit of a twist, and we will come on to it, because this is a semi-cooperative game where the director, most of the time, is going to try and get you to get all of those answers right, to get you all of those traits. However, if one of them is indeed a murderer, well, that's a little bit different. It becomes semi-cooperative. The director wants you to get most of the things right, but not everything. So then there's the chance that the watchers will win if they correctly predict that there is indeed a murderer amongst them, but sometimes you're trying to get everything perfect, and sometimes you're trying to get them to get most of it and just lead them astray a little bit at the end. Played out over 4 rounds, you've effectively got the 4 days, and those clues are always going to remain, so you can move these boards off to the side. The director effectively will lay out the 8 clues. They can put 2 of them face down. Now that might be, you've done well on a previous day, I don't want to misdirect you, or it might just be, well, these cards weren't helpful for anything, and I've got to put maybe them face down to not throw you off and stuff like that. The directors can't really talk though, they can't answer questions, they are just there to give clues from behind their screen, which has got the answers. Then, on the other side, the watchers are seeing these clues put out in front of them, trying to work out, okay, well, last time we thought that was the policeman, but, well, oh, I suppose there is a crime going on. But are they trying to say that's a thief? That's the trait for that person, rather than the police? Or maybe they're just doubling down on, well, it was a policeman, some sort of theft, okay, it's still the policeman, and you're trying to deduce those sort of things. And that is pretty much how you play Rear Window. You've got that sort of double part of the phase where the director gives the clues, the watchers then try and sort of deduce what they think, and then finally the director gives you a score out of 8. Hopefully it's quite high up, and you are basically plonking that down and saying you have got this many correct answers. If there's not a murderer, it's effectively just trying between the sort of 2 sides of that screen, the director and the watchers, to get 8 out of 8. If there is a murder, well, that's when things get a little bit semi-cooperative. But that is how you play Rear Window. It's that easy. There are a few special powers that the watchers have. They can play them to maybe ask, well, what's the most important part of that image that you've put down? But you can only use those once, and there's 4 days, so you want to spread them out, but maybe you want to wait for at least a day or 2 to have happened, to have got some clues to refer back to. So there's a few things like that to get your teeth into, as well as sort of some, I would consider, harder traits to guess. These purple ones that are effectively like they, instead of just they're the photographer, they're making a deal with someone else, and you've then got to get sort of that 2-part of bit information. But that's how you play. Now, I don't personally know too much about the film other than the general plot, which is the person is effectively spying through the windows and seeing what's gone on, and in the film something sinister may or may not have happened. In this, well, that murder or murderer might not always be there, which is quite a cool twist, but also one that I think is going to frustrate a few people. It's got some great deduction in it. That playing the cards out is really reminiscent of one of my sort of favourite deduction games, Mysterium Park. In this, the cards aren't quite as weird and wonderful and abstract weird artwork. That doesn't mean that the cards are going to be any more useful. They've often got different things and different elements on them that can definitely drive the watchers in the wrong way. For instance, you might play a card, it's got a painting of a character on it, it's then got some, let's say, a baseball bat at the bottom. Are you trying to use that card to tell us it's that person? Maybe it's the artwork, maybe they're the art lover, maybe they're the athlete because of the baseball bat. So just one clue on its own is not really ever going to be enough, unless it's a standout clue and you've played a blinder as the director. Normally, it's when you get to the second day or third and you start to see some patterns going. The director's job isn't easy though. Those cards, like I say, are full of 2 or 3 different bits of information that can definitely be taken in the wrong way. The special powers, like I suggested, you can ask one question, sort of a yes or no, is this trait or person right? The director has to say yes or no. That allows you to get that little bit of information, and maybe you're sort of testing a theory. Well, you'll find out before they reveal how many things you've got right that day. Well, that's great information. So you do have ways as the watcher to get stuff, and you have a little bit of help as the director, because you can discard one of these clipboards, like cut, and that's going to then allow you to sort of discard some cards from your hand, draw that many new ones, and hopefully they're better for giving the clues out. It's odd to maybe touch on this now, but the production quality of the game is pretty decent. Not only have you got the nice boards for the days that you're going to be laying the cards out on, there's plenty of tokens that are placed onto the board, and almost more importantly, they are put in a lovely sort of tray that allows you to sort of stack them all up. It's sort of, well, it means I can do this with the box and I can still open it up and they'll all be in that container in the sort of different sections, so it's nicely, neatly sort of packed away, which means setup is an absolute breeze. And that's getting the game to the table that bit easier, but even during gameplay, when you're looking through the different traits or even the characters at the top, it's very easy to go, okay, well, we've guessed that a few different times, maybe we shouldn't, maybe we should, and you know, you're taking those out and you can see all of the available options just straight away from looking, and I think that's really good. They've also done a great job for the 2 different sides, effectively. They've both got screens. Now you would think, well, only the director needs a screen, right, to hide the answers behind. He's also got a little tuck box to put the extra bits in, so you're not trying to shuffle them back into the box. The people that aren't in the rooms, you just put in this little tuck box off at the side. Means no one can see it. It's very useful to just conceal stuff. And the watchers also have one of those screens, and that's because if there is a murder, remember it's semi-co-op, so the director's going to be trying to throw you off a bit. And you can use that to sort of point and sort of say some stuff, maybe without talking out loud, because the director can hear you, to try and communicate with your team. And that's one thing with the co-opness of it, the director is listening to everything you're saying. Because sometimes it's like, okay, I've put that clue down, they've gone off in the entirely different direction, because I can hear them saying, oh, the baseball bat's on show, maybe it's the they're the athletic person. And you're like, oh, I put it there because it's also got, let's say, a cat on it, and I was saying they're actually the animal lover. Okay, next time, I've just got to make sure I don't play something relatively sporty, and maybe they'll go back to that clue. And that's how the sort of the deduction builds up between the 2 sides. Now, as much as I do enjoy this game, and I really love the deduction element, There is one problem I have with it. You have to, by the rules, have that murder token shuffled in. And that means you're never quite sure if it's fully cooperative between the watcher and the director, or if it's semi-co-op, they're trying to throw us off a little bit. Now, I'd love it to have a variant, and you can kind of very easily do it, to be honest, where you just don't shuffle one of those murder tokens in. You can then play it maybe with people of maybe a slightly younger age, not have it talking about murders and stuff like that, and you can do it maybe as a bit more of a family deduction, because there's no reason why this couldn't be for people that don't want to talk about murders and couldn't be fully cooperative. I'd love the choice, you can kind of do it anyway, but I'd love the choice in the rule book of if you want the murder to be shuffled in and it might be semi-cooperative, or just don't shuffle it in and play it as a co-op game, because I think from the games we've played when murder hasn't come up, that's been so much fun, as both sides of that sort of screen are, I mean, you can't tell them there's not a murder, but both sides of the screen are rooting for the other side to be doing good and be helpful. And I think that's probably the games that I've enjoyed the most, not when the murder's been involved, because not everyone's going to like the semi-co-opness. I think more people will enjoy the co-opness of, if there's not been there's not a murderer involved, we are working together. It could have just had a variant in the box, and I think that would have been a really nice touch. Like I say, you can, without it being in the rules, very easily just do that. And actually, I'd probably advise you giving it a go like that. Regardless of it being cooperative or semi-cooperative, if that murder is in play, there's one thing about this style of game that does lend itself to brand new players, rather than an all versus one game, so fully against the other. That's semi-co-op, there's a bit of a grey area, right? But this lends itself to newer players because you don't need the most experienced player to be the director. Everyone can be brand new at the game, and it doesn't matter. Normally, that's sort of all against one, right? The experienced player can take that one-person role, and the rest of us will work together. In this, you've not really got that sort of necessarily aggression against the other side. Yes, there's that chance they might be a little bit fibbing to you, but even for the sort of director, if there is a murder, it doesn't change the game that much. Yes, you've still got to sort of throw them off at the end. You don't want them to guess that one of the characters is a murderer in one of the sort of the apartments. But for the most of the game, you are still trying to get them to guess at least like 6 or 7 of the things right. So your first few rounds are almost identical. It's only maybe the last one where you're trying to throw them off, or at the sort of the very last minute. Well, maybe you've also sort of sown some seeds early on to throw them off as well, but that's one great thing. It doesn't matter if you're the brand new player. In some games you'd just be thrown on the watchers. A brand new player could definitely pick this up and play as the director, because you've got the answers in front of you, you've got your 8 cards each round, and you're playing those 8 cards out, trying to give clues. You're not doing anything wildly rules specific. You're just there to give clues and listen in to what the others are saying. But there we have it, that is Rear Window. Hopefully this has given you an idea of if this is a game for you. I would have liked it to have the official variant for co-op, but you can 100% do that. I love the little extra powers that the watchers have to get that bit of extra information out from the cards, which may or may not have been that helpful. The sort of both roles are interesting, whether you're talking about the clues as the watchers or giving them as the director. There's a good amount going on there, and even as the director, when you're not playing, you're still involved and listening, even if you can't join in the discussions. So a great deduction game. I can't say 100% if it is fully on theme, but it's certainly an interesting theme, and that is Rear Window. Let me know in the comments section below if you've played this one. What did you think? If you're looking forward to it, now you've seen the review, also let me know. And until next time, have a great day gaming.